a charitable organization. It was established in 1948 and combines the assets of Queen Anne's Bounty, a fund dating from 1704, and of the Ecclesiastical Commissioners formed in 1836. The fund is not simply a financial transaction aimed at addressing the past, but a commitment to a long-term journey of cultural, spiritual, and ethical repair that will last for a 9-year period. It aims to support Black communities in the UK, Jamaica, Ghana, Barbados, and the Americas. The church commissioners, those who manage the church's assets. Can I ask that we silence all phones, please? Thank you. The church commissioners have stated that we prefer repair to reparations to distinguish the fund from initiatives for direct compensation for descendants of enslaved Africans. Let me just say that again. It's very clear that you understand that point. The church commissioners have stated that we prefer repair to reparations to distinguish the fund from initiatives for direct compensation for descendants of enslaved Africans. In other words, this is not a reparation fund, which is the wider political movement which challenges governments, the church, and other organizations for enslaving African persons. But this is a fund solely to repair. Therefore, their fund is not framed as reparations, but as repair, to avoid, as they say, the politicization of the term, and this they view as a journey towards reparative justice. So I think, is that clear for everybody? As we move on with the discussion. The Fund for Healing, Repair and Justice reflects a holistic approach to addressing the deep scars left by slavery and colonialism. More than just acknowledging historical wrongs, it seeks systemic change and a better future. The term repair speaks to the cultural and spiritual mending required to undo the effects of these injustices, going beyond direct compensation. It is about restoring dignity, mending relationships, and creating lasting changes that will benefit future generations. At its core, this fund is about healing for individuals, communities, and institutions, and requires intentional and sustained effort to address the ongoing effects of this legacy while working to repair the damage done. There's that word again, repair. So not to be confused, as the church says, with reparations. I come to this space having spent a lifetime working underground at the grassroots level to alleviate the legacy of slavery on many fronts. Journalism, my work in broadcast, community work, writing, and project development. I've spent over 30 years studying and understanding Black history, culture, and traditions, and therefore I, more than an average person, am fully aware of the true effects of this legacy and the impact of this legacy daily throughout our existence, politically, socially, and educationally. And this is not only across the UK, but also in my travels to Africa and the Caribbean countries to research and to alleviate the impacts of this very legacy. I've worked with organizations such as BMAG, this very organization, I used to work here actually for some years. I've worked with Rastafarians, I've worked with Pan-Africanists, and a cross-section of community activist groups. I'm fully aware of the impact that the Fund for Healing, Repair and Justice can have on our communities, which have a lack of political representation. I want to ensure that whatever happens, whatever is fully discussed, that the people who need the help receive the help that they need. I want to ensure the conversation today is civil, it's respectful, we're not pointing fingers and making accusations, but that we approach the topic from a standpoint of clarity, honesty, and a shared commitment to the liberation of all peoples who have suffered under the legacy of colonialism and enslavement. The £100 million fund is a gesture of accountability from an institution that has a long, complex history, one that has both perpetuated and more recently begun to reckon with its role in the crime of slavery. Yet, as many of us know, this is only one piece of a much larger puzzle. The aim of today's event is to ensure the inclusion of the leadership and voices of Black communities, because those most affected must not just be consulted, but must lead the way in shaping this reparative process works. think about it. With this in mind, this is our opportunity to see how the fund could potentially begin the process to address cultural, emotional and spiritual wounds, contributing to a more equitable and just future for Black people in the UK and across the world, and addressing systemic, economic, infrastructural inequities and which continue to impact our societies. This is the first part of a 3-part series. As you've mentioned, the fund also is for persons in the Caribbean and Africa, and we need to somehow bring those persons into this discussion as well, even though collective response to what the church has put to us. We are fortunate to have, I'm jumping the gun. This important event is being produced by Blackstory Partnership in collaboration with Birmingham Museums, Blessed, the Black Heritage Walks Network, and Birmingham City University's Black Studies Department. I extend my heartfelt gratitude to all of our partners for making this event possible, and we're also excited to share that today's discussion is being streamed via Blackstory's YouTube channel for a wider audience, ensuring more people can join in this essential conversation. And to those persons online, we also say welcome to you. So even though I've asked everybody to put their phones on silent, if you can go to the Blackstory website, YouTube channel, and share the link on your WhatsApp or Facebook or Instagram pages to let people know this discussion is taking place live right about now. Okay, so on to our panel. We're fortunate to have assembled a panel of experts who bring a wealth of knowledge, lived experiences, and commitment to reparative justice. I look forward to introducing them and hearing their insights on how reparative justice can be meaningfully enacted, effectively, and with accountability. Once again, let us approach today's discussions with open hearts and minds. The work we do here has the potential to create lasting and measurable change, not just for the descendants of the enslaved, but also for humanity, as we strive to build a future rooted in justice, solidarity, and reparative action. Thank you again for being here and for your commitment to this important cause. And I look forward to the conversations, the powerful conversations that's going to unfold today. So let me begin by introducing my panel, starting with this gentleman on the right of me. We did have somebody from the church commissioners. Unfortunately, 6 o'clock this morning, we were informed that they couldn't attend the event, and they were crucial. They were very crucial to this discussion. So we do hope to engage them at some point in the future. But I know this gentleman can assist us with answering some of those questions that I had for our guest, Georgia Boon from the Church Commission. Okay, sitting on my right is Professor Patrick Vernon, OBE. Patrick is an influential broadcaster, public speaker, and advisor on equality, diversity, and inclusion. He is the chair of the Birmingham and Solihull NHS ICB and has also held leadership roles in several health partnerships. Patrick is widely known for his advocacy on Black history and heritage, having led the campaign for a National Windrush Day and co-authored the book 100 Great Black Britons. He's also been instrumental in exposing the Windrush scandal and advocating for reparations. And Patrick, we look forward to hearing from your insights today. Thank you for joining us. Please give him a round of applause. Okay. Next on my far left is Dr. Shey Fyfee. She's a lecturer in sociology and Black studies at Birmingham City University. Shey's research focuses on Black radicalism and the future of Black community organizations in 21st century Britain. She has a passion for bridging the gap between academia and activism and works to foster collaborations between scholars and community collectives. Her work explores the dynamics within Black community spaces and their role in cultural and political consciousness. Shey, we also look forward to hearing your reflections on how reparations, or the reparations, we've had a discussion behind the scenes about this fund, can contribute to the strengthening of Black community. And I say reparations, but it's not reparations, but this is going to be something we discuss. Welcome anyway to the discussion, Shey. I'm glad you could join us today. Sitting next to Shey, the granddaddy of the community, Elder Maxi Hayles, MBE, might I say. He's a veteran human rights activist and a prominent advocate for reparative justice. Born in Jamaica and arriving in Britain in 1960, Maxi has spent over 5 decades challenging systematic racism and promoting racial equality. In 1989, he founded the Birmingham Racial Attacks Monitoring Unit, supporting victims of racial violence at a time when such issues were often ignored by the authorities. He contributed to the Stephen Lawrence Inquiry and represented the UK at the United Nations on racial discrimination. Guided by lived experience and Christian values, Maxi's work has earned him national honours, including an MBE and an honorary doctorate. Welcome, sir. So sitting next to Maxi is Rosemary Mecklenburgh. I hope I've said your name correctly. She's from my neck of the woods, Wales. And she's a retired social worker, mother, grandmother, and wife. While long aware of distant ancestral ties to Jamaica, it was not until reading a 2018 Guardian article on Britain's role in slavery that Rosemary began a deeper investigation. She discovered that a paternal ancestor had been a lawyer that upheld the laws of slavery and was also an enslaver in Jamaica, directly complicit in upholding and benefiting from the system of enslavement. In response, Rosemary and 6 relatives issued a formal apology to the people of Jamaica and its diaspora. She is now committed to supporting reparative action led by the descendants of the enslaved. Thank you, Rosemary, for joining us today. Thank you. Last but not least, on my far right, sitting there very, like he's in a form of meditation, Robin Wedderburn. Robin is a retired school teacher and musician, aged 77. He remains very active in musical and community life, a committed member of the Church of England. They take a particular interest in the Church's stance on reparative justice. Though of Scottish descent, his family has lived outside of Scotland for generations. However, their 4 times great-grandfather, John Wedderburn of Spring Garden, was a plantation owner, linked to the same family line as the abolitionist Robert Wedderburn. After meeting Professor Sir Jeff Palmer, they were inspired to join Heirs of Slavery and now work to confront and respond to their ancestral legacy of enslavement. And Robin, we're also grateful to have you here with us today. Thank you very much. Okay, so those are the introductions. Let's get on to the nitty-gritty of why we're here today. And thank you all once again for your patience. We did have a member of the Church of England, the Church Commissioners, who was due to attend, and she was crucial to help us to understand the fund that has been put together. However, as I said, she messaged us early hours this morning to let us know she couldn't attend due to unforeseen circumstances. So the gentleman on my right, I'm going to try and somehow put some of the questions that I had for her to you. Because I know you were part of you were one of the members of the community who were consulted about this fund. Okay, let's start off with this. Let's get some clarity here. The church has made it clear it's not a compensation or a reparation scheme. And they've been clear to make that distinction between the word repair and reparations. How can you sort of help us to ensure that the fund can achieve and play that role of repairing?
Good question. So, hi everyone. Can you hear me? Yeah. Good. So Georgia Boon, who works for the Church Commissioners, she wasn't well, so she couldn't make it today. Myself and 15 people were selected by the Church Commissioners to go through a process of a 15-month period to basically put together a report to make some recommendations to the church commissioners regarding the assets and the money that they have acquired as a result of the enslavement of our ancestors. The Church of England itself initially apologised for its involvement in the African chattel slave trade, but then they wanted to find out how deep their involvement was. So the church commissioners, as you've heard, looks after the money and the assets of the Church of England. So we work closely. The Church of England is a very complex organisation, a bit like the Vatican, I suppose, but a very complex organisation. So we've worked with the church commissioners, and we had an oversight group, which I was a member of, and majority, I would say about 2/3 of the members of the oversight group were black people, all of us with degrees of specialism expertise, from theology to investment to campaign activism to history to law, to work with the church commissioners around this. The church commissioners had already, before we started the work in August 2023, had made an announcement that they were going to invest £100 million. And the very first thing that we said when we first got together was, you know, £100 million, with all due respect, is not enough. And actually, we all know, no matter how much money we talk about around the impact of enslavement on multi-generationally, the money's never enough. But there has to be something decent. So even though the church have committed £100 million, one of the key recommendations...
Sorry, I don't want to be rude. Can we stick as much as... Because we're going to have a lot of time to discuss on the Pacifics. Oh. But if we can get in with the questions... because
I'm going to come to that.
Yeah, well, if we can get there sooner.
Okay, I'm sorry, okay. Okay, yeah. And this is important because it's about context with things like that. So, so going to the heart of the question you raised, if you look at the international principles around reparations, and United Nations identified 5 key principles around what does reparation looks like, we recognise from the off that the church was not in a position to actually develop a fully fledged reparations fund. But what the church commissioners felt he had to do was look at the repair. So a good part of the work that we did, and we met for about 15 months, we had lots of evidence, we did consultations in the community, we had surveys, was looking at the impact of enslavement around a number of key areas, around well-being, around business, around economic development, around young people, etc. And that's when we came up with the expression repair, because the repair is really important. In a place like Birmingham, you can still see the impact of enslavement even today in Birmingham. So we felt that if we're going to create a fund, that fund has to look at the historical, contemporary impact of enslavement, as well. So we're very clear about that. We're in the process of developing the fund, and obviously we're still in the early stages of doing that. But the Church Commission has made a commitment by 2025, towards the end of 2025, the fund will be launched as well. And the heart of that fund is about repair. The work I do a lot of work around health and well-being. Mental health, for me, is a key element of repair, as well as young people and health inequalities. If you look at the health inequalities from diabetes, cancer, prostate cancer, this is part of this process around repair as well. Okay. So hopefully I'm done.
Okay, thank you very much. And I think, once again, it's very important to us to make this distinction between repair and reparations. As I mentioned in my background, I'm speaking to you, I'm very much into my African history. When I hear the term repair, for me it brings to mind culture that's been lost and damaged, traditions that's been lost and damaged, and languages that have been lost and damaged, which puts us at a disadvantage today in society. So when I think of the word repair, I'm thinking of restoration. How do you restore that which you have helped to destroy? Now, how do we ensure that everybody is on the same page? Because not all black people will share my point of view, especially those who've never, for example, studied the history. They don't have any interest in history, they don't care. They just see it more about as, we want compensation, let's move forward, which then ties the argument more into reparations, which is what the Church of England are trying to avoid. The church commissioners are trying to avoid.
I mean, I'm not speaking on behalf of the church commissioners, to be quite honest. I'm here to talk about what I see repair and what I see as reparation. So just to answer that bit around church commissioners, the church commissioners is one part of the Church of England. To me, this is a starter for 10. To put this in context, as you know, Britain has never, ever apologised for its involvement in African chattel slavery. The nearest thing to it was Tony Blair in 2006, leading up to the 2007 bicentenary of the abolition of the Slave Trade Act, when he made a statement of regret. And then years later, if you remember, David Cameron had the audacity to go to the Jamaican Parliament, reparations. So this, I mean, I'm not quite sure whether the appetite for this current government is, but the Church of England, which is probably one of the key institutions in British society, has formally apologised. So this is just a starter for 10. We've still got more work to do, and it's not a coincidence. Who is the head of the Church of England? That's the next conversation that needs to be had.
How do we, though, I'm asking, how do we, and maybe Shey can answer this, how do we ensure we're all on the same page? Some people have come here today thinking the discussion is about reparations. The church is saying, we're not dealing with reparations, we're not considering that, this is about repair. How do we get onto the same page so everyone leaves here with the same understanding?
I think for me it's a question of semantics, really. Reparation, when we look at the word in and of itself, is to rectify wrongdoing onto an injured party. The individual who is providing the rectification being the one that inflicted the harm. I think the evasion of the word reparation itself is an attempt to evade. Sorry, is my mic on? Is it? Lean in?
Yeah, these mics are for the internet. I don't think they're for the room.
I think the avoidance of the word reparation itself is an avoidance of the discourses that surround the word and the history that is aligned with the work, the ongoing struggles that have taken place in communities, I'll speak in the British context, but globally, for decades around reparations, specifically in the Rastafarian community. I think wanting to separate this concept of reparation from this repair is a real, for want of a better term, kick in the teeth, really, because it is, even though they are separate from one another, they're being articulated separately. This is, I think if the term reparation was being used, then the acknowledgement would have to be made that that reparation can never be made, the score can never be settled. So I think it's going to have to be agree to disagree for each and every one of us, really, and moving forward with the conversation that way. Because personally, I find the evasion of the word to be quite perturbing. It's because there's a history attached to that, and there's a discourse attached to that, and there's a image of people that are attached to that. When I think of reparations, I think of March in the Street, I think of Thames, I think of the people. This is, dare I say, a gentrifying of the concept, of the journey.
All right. Thank you very much for your response there. So how then do you think that this fund can avoid being perceived as a form of institutional self-preservation and instead be rooted in transparency, accountability and co-creation?
I think the main point of concern when we think about the giving of funds to community spaces specifically is the concept of funding conditionality. So when we speak of aid conditionality, i.e. when one country gives money to another country, typically a global south country to a western country to a global south country, or a western to a non-western nation, there's typically strings attached to that money. Sometimes the strings are political. Sometimes the strings are saying, you cannot get into cahoots with another country who you have to remain an ally of ours. In order to avoid or to maintain the integrity of the spirit in which the funds are declared to be given, I think it's very important that there is a centralising of blackness in and of itself, which means there needs to be an acknowledgement that people of African descent, even though there are multiple, anyone that's classified as non-white, it has been impacted by systemic racism on some scale. But anti-blackness as a concept is individually and uniquely experienced by people of African descent. And so when I look in the history of black political organisation in this country, the dilution of blackness and black unity, radical black unity, has come in the form of the co-opting of anti-racist struggles by other non-white communities. We see that in the grassroots through the concept of political blackness, which is the unification of all individuals who are non-white against white supremacy or white anti-non-white racism. However, over time, what happens is that black people who were at the beginning or the centre of those movements became decentered in those movements, and it became more of a discussion about, oh, we are all non-white, we all must join together, but anti-blackness still exists in those spaces. And so I think in order to maintain the integrity of the money and the black progression that this money is for, it's important that these spaces remain unapologetically and exclusively black.
Okay, thanks.
Would you like me to start there?
Was there something else you wanted to say?
The second
briefly.
Yeah, the second point is to not is in earmarking who this money is going to go to prioritise community need over capital. So allowing lived experience and the current condition of community to direct where money is allocated and what for.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And that should be in deconstructing our life, decolonising our life journeys as black people in Britain. I always tend to my own lived experiences and given examples, but the journey to motherhood, maternal health care, and allowing black community spaces to have funds to embrace non-Western approaches to maternal care and birth and labouring and looking after children. Decolonising our life experiences allows us to avoid the money just being used to subsume us back into the same system that we are already oppressed under.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Okay, she's on point, isn't she? Okay, Maxi, with over 5 decades of fighting racial injustice, where do you see the fund for healing, repair and justice within the broader movement for racial equality in the UK? How can it be positioned to create long-lasting structural change rather than short-term responses? And if you could be as brief and succinct as possible, please, and ask for all of our panel members, please.
You know, when I hear the term repairs, the first thing that comes to mind is, I mean, are you kidding? Really? Because, you know, if we, and I'm just going to do just a little overview here. I mean, we're coming from a journey of enslavement, colonialism, imperialism, apartheid, segregation, Jim Crow era, neocolonialism, assimilation, integration, multiculturalism, Windrush scandal, etc., etc. And for me, repair is, first thing I think about is, how about repairing the stolen confidence? You know that one of the mega things that prevent us from developing is because that confidence has been stolen. And it doesn't matter how much PhD or whatever we've got. We still lack confidence. And when you look at the infrastructure, for instance, these funds that are available, usually, what do? You've got a situation, if there's a pot of funding going for 100,000, because of our lack of confidence, we'll go for 20,000, 50,000. And we all know that that's not good because it's going to fail, but we're just afraid. The mega thing that we need to repair is that confidence. We haven't got an infrastructure. We don't even have any place to accommodate our dead. When our people drop down dead or when we die, you don't even have a reception building for us to say we own this. We have to go to another nationality, other people to engage them, and our money go right back to people, not in our community. That for me is repair. Repair really means that we have a lot of mental health issue out there. It's a big issue, someone mentioned. Psychological issues, economic inequalities, yeah? And so structural infrastructure development for me is it. I mean, if we, and I haven't answered your question yet.
If you could, I'd appreciate it.
If we just got out, sorry. If we just look down the road down to Bristol, somebody said they came from Bristol? Did they are Wales? We've got a person down that used to live down there. His name is Edward Colston. That man transported over 100 million slaves to the Americas and to the West Indies. He had done 21 streets in Bristol is named after Colston. He built almshouses. He built hospitals. He built schools and what have you of the blood of black people. So we already built and pay for our Jews in this place. So, but when I hear about repair, it's not enough. The Dutch has apologized, did you know?
Okay, I just want to stick a pin there. That's why I call him Granddaddy. Because he comes with the, he comes with the discipline. I'm just going to bring you back in quickly. You can see already this word repair, reparation is causing a problem. You mentioned that when you were consulting or meeting with the church commissioners, you understood yourself why it was more about repair and couldn't be about reparation. Just explain to us, please, why was that? Why did you come to that understanding, make that distinction?
Well, as I said before, right, if you look at the international definition of reparations looked at by United Nations, they've got 5 criteria, and a lot of us that were on that committee, most of us have been involved in the movement for a number of decades, recognise that the church commissioners, which is part of the wider Church of England, is not in that position to talk about reparations. So the only thing that they can do in terms of the money that they made from our ancestors was looking at repair. And actually the fund that is being developed, it will, but been raised so far is about looking at that structural infrastructure, because if you look around Britain, there aren't many buildings that we own, there aren't many places or infrastructure that we have. So the idea is actually, can we do that? And it's not funding current financial problems or cash flow problems. It's trying to invest for the future. In terms of, if you look at other similar endowment funds around the world, when countries have apologised, particularly they've created endowment funds for that future investment, and that's what we've been looking at, and that's why the £100 million is a starter for 10. Aspirationally, it's looking at having £1 billion, but it's not just about the billion, it's actually then putting pressure on other key institutions in Britain who also made money on the back of our ancestors to also be involved in this conversation and process as well, to be quite honest.
Okay, thank you very much for that. Thank you. Okay, moving on to Robin Wedderburn. Am I saying your surname correctly? Is it Wedderburn? Okay, moving on to you before we speak to Rosemary. You've engaged with Scotland's role in slavery through the work of Professor Sir Geoff Palmer. How can the Church Commissioners' initiative ensure a UK-wide approach to repair, recognise not just England's, but also Scotland and Britain's wider colonial entanglements? And I'd put Ireland in there as well.
Well, I came into this little group, which Rosemary and I belong to, through a chance meeting with the wonderful Professor Sir Geoff. I don't know if any of you know him, perhaps lots of you do. And the first thing when I met him was inspired me, I think, was his reaching out to me. And it just, Maxi saying just now, one of the issues is a stolen, did I hear you right, Maxi?
Yes, stolen confidence.
Stolen confidence. But Sir Geoff and so many others have somehow found not only the confidence, but if I can put it with that sentimentality, found the love to reach out to me. Now, as Ancobia said, my ancestors were up to their necks, if I put it like that, in enslavement. John Wedderburn, my 4 times great-grandfather, owned multiple plantations, partly because he married somewhat strategically. I'm very pleased that I've been drawn in. I don't really going to get off the subject, Anko, because I know you get at me if I do. Maxi's point about stolen confidence leads me to say that I'm absolutely with many people who have said, I was listening to Sir Hilary Beckles, Professor Beckles, and whose attitude to this is the first thing that has got to be done with us all is complete exchange and equality of regard. You for me, if I can look at people sitting here, and me for you. If I can say it's love, let me say it's love. After all, we're dealing with a Christian church and the church commissioners, and being a Christian is about love, and love means valuing each other. However, being all nice and loving is a bit empty if you don't do anything. And that's my challenge now. What do we do? The church has obviously made a small step in the direction of material change. But of course, as Patrick said, it's a drop in the ocean. A question I would ask is where is the church's wealth now? How can the church get rid of some of its wealth and put it towards this repair? I don't know, and Patrick, you will know, and Georgia, is she Georgina?
Georgia.
Georgia would have had something to say to this. If I could say one more thing.
Yes, please do.
This repair is part of what I would like to think of the only possible future for this country. If there is division, not diversity, but division in our country, we are going to go down the drain. If white elitism is the way things are done in this country, well, we will go down the drain even more quickly. The only future for this country is for all people to respect each other as equals, for people to be prepared to learn from each other. I'm sorry I'm pontificating now, but you know what I'm saying. We have got to be open with one another. I believe that particularly strongly as a Christian. It doesn't make me any better than anybody else, but I obviously believe that. And barriers have got to go on coming down. That's why I am so pleased to be here and so honoured to be asked to be here.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm going to ask you another question. So being part of the Heirs of Slavery group has clearly had an impact on your own journey of reckoning. How can the experience of groups like this inform the creation and implementation of reparations initiatives, particularly in ensuring that descendants of enslaved people are central to the conversation and decision-making process? And I also say that in light of given your family's history and experience, it can be easy in conversations like this to focus on just institutions and sort of ask them to do the changes and make the changes. But what about individual families which make up the organisation of Heirs of Slavery Group, for example?
Well, change comes very often through a huge number of individual responses, actions and attitudes. And in a way, there is no other way. You can't have a political party saying we have this policy, therefore everything's going to be better. If each of us does not change our attitudes, act, do what they know they should, then nothing happens, of course. One thing I would like to put in is that the absolute importance of equality of educational opportunity from the word go. And what happens at primary school, I've been a teacher in my professional life, what happens at primary school is absolutely crucial. If little kids think that their confidence has been stolen, as Maxi put it, they're sunk. It's very difficult to get it back. So there, I think, lies a very radical source of repair to me. Does that answer what you asked?
Yes, thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that very much. Next, we have Rosemary Mecklenburgh.
Yeah.
Is that correct?
That's correct, yeah.
Okay. Is that a Welsh surname?
No.
Oh, okay.
It's from Norfolk.
Norfolk. Okay. All right. You've expressed a desire to find positive and constructive ways to move forward. In your opinion, what are the key elements of a reparation initiative that would not only acknowledge the harm of the past, but also actively contribute to repairing the continuing damage done by enslavement?
If I could just go back to the difference between the discussion about repair and reparations. I don't know if everybody else has read this book. To me, it's a fantastic history. It is written by a white member of the Church of England. And what he says, I'm not sure that I agree, and I totally understand what you're saying about that it seems as if it's a downplaying of what needs to happen by the church. He's talking about repair rather than reparations. But the point he makes is that repair is what we as individuals, what institutions, what people at a lesser level than the government do, whereas reparations can sort of only be done by governments. But I don't know if that's what he says. I haven't had a chance to decide whether I think that's correct or not. But going back to, the question about, and I also think that there's I think that people who are in academia have a huge responsibility for activism, and I think it's brilliant that that's one of the things you said was very important to you. Because I've come from a family of sort of academics. I'm not one myself at all. And what I feel very angry about is that I think that nowadays, apart from obviously our example here, people in academia aren't getting involved in activism as they should, because they're the ones they've got a lot of privilege, a lot of power, and they should be being much more involved in activism, because I think they could make a real difference. But going back to what I see is, I think that I'm certainly no expert, and I must take my lead from the descendants of the enslaved and very much learn from them, but not leave them to do it. In Heirs of Slavery, we feel that we want to be allies of the heirs of the descendants of the enslaved. So we want to hear exactly what they think we should be doing, and I joined it because I feel there's power in numbers, and I feel that, I think we're a campaigning group and an activist group.
What other problems have you encountered trying to bring others on board?
I think I've come at it, well, obviously starting with my family. I think some people find it very difficult to think that they've got anything to do with something that happened 200 years ago. How could they be? I feel very ashamed that my ancestor was a lawyer, and I feel very ashamed and very angry that he upheld the racist and the terrible laws that govern slavery in Jamaica. So I think we can, but a lot of people don't think that they can be sorry for something they didn't do. And I think that's one of the big things that holds us back. Also, I think it's a difficult time because certainly since I got involved, we've come to realise that we're in quite a difficult financial state. There's several wars, but this man here says that however much we think we need all the money we've got, we could. He's worked out what he thinks based on some sort of sums, thinks that we could pay, which is many, many billions, but he thinks that Britain has enough money to do that if it had a wealth tax.
Okay, thank you. In fact, I was talking with Shey, because the church has come up with the £100 million fund for healing, repair and justice, but I'm sure there was a higher figure of 450 million.
440 million was the amount of money that was made, that was by the church, that the church went through the church's hands. So the 100 million is what's coming back through this fund. So it was 440 million was the figure of the amount of money, was the amount of money that passed through the Church of England's hands as a result of the of African chattel slavery. Yes. But of course, £100 million is not around. Please, if that number is incorrect, but that is the source I've read, around over £400 million British pounds today.
Yeah. Okay, you want to come back in,
Yeah,
Rosemary?
I think what the second stage of the Church of England did, because one of the members of Heirs of Slavery was on the group that gave the second report, and it said that although the church was going to donate that amount, they wanted to draw in funds from other organisations to bring,
Barclays, Lloyds,
yes,
so
to
on
bring
and so
up
forth.
to a bigger thing. But as far as I can see, since that report was made, I cannot see any progress.
Yeah, neither can I from what I've read, and I think it's also a way of, I think because the church wants to involve the Caribbean and Africa in this, I think at some point, some Caribbean governments, some African governments need to send in their forensic accountants, so to speak, to look at and see what is actually owed. Because if you start saying, well, let's go to Barclays, let's go to Lloyds and get money from them, you're still not addressing, well, how much do you actually owe? Because it's only for 9 years. And 100 million between Jamaica, Barbados, Ghana, the Americas, Black Britain, it's, you know, we will get to the audience, but not just yet. Sorry.
When the realised that they were deeply involved around the Queen Anne bounty, and they made an offer of £100 million as initially, then they put together the oversight group. Our first recommendations, the oversight group said £100 million is not enough. So one of the key recommendations in the report, and I do urge you to go online to read the report that we did on behalf of the Church Commissioners, that they should develop a fund of over £1 billion. So the Church have committed 100. One of the key issues is how do you have organisations and families and businesses who also have been involved in this enslavement to be involved in the process. So you've got a number of philanthropists and funders like who are also looking at that church. So, for example, a number of funders in London, they found out, so like Lloyds of London, they've got links, but they're developing their own projects and schemes. And the question is, how can you build up a fund that could make a real difference to support some of the key issues around repairing the harm as well? So I think it's ongoing. It's part of the thing that the Church of England Church Commission has to do is set up the vehicle for an investment endowment fund, and that requires all the technical things and legal things and fiduciary things that you have to set up to do that. So that takes a bit of time. The Church also commissions has to change its articles to do this, so they have to get permission from the Charity Commission. So that's why it's taken a bit longer in terms of some of the processes to make this happen.
Okay, thank you very much. Maxi, do you want to come in there?
Yeah. I just want to make 2 points, really. One of the points I want to make is that black churches need to be involved. They missed a big opportunity when after the death, after the murder, actually, the brutal murder of Floyd George. That's when they should have come on board, but it's not too late. So we need to encourage black churches to come on board. Well, let me just address something here. When we talk about the wickedness of white people, of our people, which is still creating constant brutality and psychological trauma to our community until this day, we're actually saying we're not accusing any individual such as yourself or Sir Robert, down there, of that genocide, because you weren't there. But what we're actually asking is for you and others to actually help us to kick away, push away those obstacles, those racial barriers which have been placed. Sometimes we can't even jump over them. And help us to negotiate, break them down, kick them down, and help us to redress that, which a lot of white people are still benefiting until today. And it's causing us so much problems. So that's all they're asking, really. Not a direct accusation of, yeah, it would be unfair. Yeah? Others, thanks, yeah.
And Kirby, may I?
Sure, by all means.
Maxi, how do you suggest that I do it?
How do I suggest?
How do I do it?
Oh, well, you're as I said, you alone can't do it as an individual, but you need to find some strategy. It's your job. And if you don't find that strategy, then we're going to hold you responsible because you're sitting there. You get what I mean? But
yes, but there are two aspects. One is, what do I personally do?
Yes, campaign.
And secondly,
campaign.
I suppose it's part of the same
Campaign.
thing. How do I personally kind of try and spread what you are talking about?
You have to develop and create platforms to develop uncomfortable discussions between you and those people, whether they like it or not. You have to tell it as it is, tell this the truth, and actually help to reshape and change the narrative, the existing narrative.
Then I would say, I'm sorry, this is a cross.
Okay.
Then I think it's, if I can put it like this, it's up to you to educate me.
Well, that's what I'm trying to do now.
Good. Okay, thank you.
Okay,
Yes.
so we're about to go to the audience discussion part of this, the question and answers, to give you, the audience, a chance to engage with panel members. It's only going to be 30 minutes long, but it'll give you a chance to speak with members of the panel and to put your questions forward nice and succinctly, or to make a short statement, please. Yeah, so just a moment. I'm looking for Pauline. Okay. Oh, you're going to be doing the microphone? Okay, all right. Okay, so we got 30 minutes, and then we're going to come back to the panel members to allow them to feedback as well on today's session. Thank you. What's your name? Okay, so Andrew's from the museum. She's going to go around. Put your hands nice and high so she can see. I think it'll be 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay.
Hi, the panelists. My name is Kessa, and one question I would like to put forward is, how does the church repair 4 centuries of atrocities, of the demonization of African spirituality, culture, language, etc.? I would also like to state 100 million is a bit hypocritical and an insult, even if it was more, and it was divided between the 6 countries that and Colbert stated, it would still be a drop in the ocean. And when it's distributed between the different parts of the countries and people jumping through hoops trying to get a piece, no, that's not the way. Last thing I'd like to say is, in repair, normally you have an apology. You start with an apology, and then you see how you can repair the damage. Finally, you do not commence with the activities that you did previously. So, does that mean that the church should leave certain regions so we can have our own autonomy and get on with our vision for the future.
When you say leave certain regions, you mean come out of the Caribbean, come out of America? Shey to come in on the first part of the question, followed by Patrick.
Sorry.
Just recapping the first part of your question.
The first part, well, it was really like, how does the church prepare for centuries of the demonization of African spirituality, language and culture? Because the church still exists, even if it pays reparation, it will still be preaching its doctrine.
Mm-hmm.
So we have a situation which is kind of untenable.
I'm always wary responding to questions and points regarding the church and the presence of the church and the role of the church in the black community because of how entwined Christianity as a religion is in the continent and the diaspora. And I say this with the utmost respect as I was raised in the church. I think there needs to be a deconstruction of religion, first of all. And there needs to be a reckoning, there needs to be a reconciliation with the incongruence between the history of the church and the tool that Christianity has been in the oppression of our people before we can even get into the conversation of what the church is going to do, because the former impedes the latter, right? Because you say, you could say, let's frog march ourselves into the Caribbean and shut down every church of England in the Caribbean, but those that will be waiting for you at the doors, holding hands to say, do not come here, will be Caribbean people, right? So we have to have a conversation about the intricacies between religion, belief, our connections to spirit and spirituality, to God, and what our communal conceptualization of that relationship is and who that is. Before we can even get into the conversations of the practice, because it's the individuals who have been slighted, i.e. our people, that would be the ones that would answer that question, as evidence or as illustrated in the exchange between Robert and Maxi. It's who is to expend the intellectual labour of putting together an atonement or a plan of atonement that would be appropriate. But we have to have a conversation about the role of religion before we have a conversation about that.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I say that with the utmost respect.
Yeah.
I do.
Thank you very much. And this is one of the concerns. This is why I mentioned in the very beginning that repair means different things to different people. So we have to have a consensus. For some people, I've heard there's a part of the fund where 30% of it is to go towards black businesses. And then 70% towards other initiatives. But what about the repair of... I'm looking your way. I'm not, holding you responsible for the church in any way. I just happen to be looking that way. But but what about the repairs, which is what the gentleman's saying of you've damaged the culture. It's at my house and you break into my house and you kick down my door, I mash up my door. And then I say, can you fix back my door, please? And you say, well, no, I'm not. I'm going to put back a different door. And I said, well, I want back the door you're mashed up. And you say, no, I'm going to give you something from IKEA. You see, I'm not sure how the church how the commissioners are going to deal with this aspect of getting everybody onto the same page of what you mean by repair. Repair, because you say you want to repair history, and you know you force Christianity on us. We weren't that before. How do we repair? Patrick.
So again, I urge you to read the report, because the report that we did acknowledges the points that you raised, sir, about the harm, how African traditional religion was destroyed and spirituality was destroyed by Christianity. So it's in the report, and one of the things that needs to happen now, which is already happening, if Georgie was here, she would explain that the church is actually looking at its theology, how it teaches the Bible, and it's almost like he has to do a cultural change program within the Church of England, which is going to have which is already having some opposition already, as you can imagine, you know. So all I can say that was our recommendation, and the church commissioners working with the different facets of the Church of England are addressing that, working with the bishops and working with all the kind of the infrastructure of the Church of England around looking at the theology and to bring the impact of enslavement and how Christianity is taught. That is a key recommendation. It's been driven through.
Thank you. Next question.
Good afternoon, panel. This question is for Robert and Maxi, one of my heroes in the community. So, as an educator of over 30-odd years in primary education, one of the things that I have seen...
Would you like to stand up?
Oh,
just so
to stand up. Oh, sorry. So one of the things that I've seen in primary education is the level of deprivation in the black community. So as an educator, my idea of spending the money would be that all black children have access to therapy, because as Ankovia said, that if you break my door, I want it repaired. When we have families who have been raped, who have been abused, who have been dehumanized, there is nothing in place for them, and we've had our ancestors who have been all through these challenges and they have not had any kind of support or therapy. What has been filtered down to us as the generation of our ancestors, but also the structure of our black schools. And when I talk about the black schools, I worked in a Saturday school in Dudley many years ago. And one of the things with that Saturday school, and it was run by a Dudley local authority, was that if there was an issue with a child, they were directed to go to that Saturday school. So the Saturday school also supported the family, but also supported that child to maintain that child in that education system. So what I'm saying is, one, the access of therapy for our young people so that they can become adults, so that they can heal the trauma that has been filtered down to them, but also to create our own educational system, and it doesn't have to be linked into the national curriculum, but our own educational system, that we create leaders, we create people that become self-confident, that they can stand and they can know and debate, and they can stand and be themselves as African people. So it's a statement, but possibly a comment with it.
And you want Maxi to answer that?
Both of them, yeah.
Both. Okay, let's start with you, Robin.
I didn't catch your name, madam.
Oh, Angela.
Angela. Wow. It triggers in my mind, and the gentleman who also whose name I've forgotten began with K.
Kessa.
Kessa, hi. This whole question of the balance between us treating each other as understanding each other and wanting to be in one another's pockets in a way, but also to respect, particularly African culture, which you know, and not to replace the old door with the IKEA or all of that. There is a balance, isn't there? Because if there's complete separation, and I felt you were almost saying the church should get out of the Caribbean.
Well, yeah, leave us, let us be autonomous so we can be the authors of our own future.
Yeah, well, I sort of get that.
I know it's not going to happen, but yeah.
But Angela, you talk about therapy. Isn't it, to some extent, I'm sure that there are many contexts in which that is absolutely right, but isn't also a good therapy for there to be real understanding of different communities together? You talked about black school. Was it exclusively black?
No. What we say is therapy. Now, with therapy, there's two kinds. There's the therapy that understands culture. So when I engage with a child, I may use... So there's two types of therapy, and so when I engage in a child, sometimes I will speak patois so that that child understands. My white colleague won't be able to do that, but it gets to the child. He understands my meaning, he understands my discipline, he understands where we're going. There's a dialogue, and that's why when I talk about that therapy really has to come from therapy from a cultural perspective. When I talk about the Saturday school links into that culture as well. So if you've got a child who's going to be excluded, you can also direct that child to that Saturday school and have those role models support the family and that young person. So it's not about being exclusive, it's about supporting, because I think that to help us, you have to heal us first. Well, we have to heal ourselves, and by healing ourselves, we have to do a lot of work in our community. And I don't want us to go around in the begging bowl and say that we need this from this community to support us. I just think that we need access to certain things, and they have to be clear what those things are.
Well, I think it's wonderful, and I think that some of the church commissioners ought to have in writing, Angela. That's the sort of thing that should be funny.
Thank you. Well, the church commissioners will get to see this discussion, and I know Audrey from Blackstory Partnership will feed back to the church commissioners this discussion today and some of the points that have been raised as well. Who's next? Oh, sorry, Maxi, you wanted to come in?
Can I stand up?
By all means, sir.
Sorry about that.
Take the floor.
I'm really glad you raised that point. About education. First thing that's come to mind is the great Steve Biko, South Africa, you see, it's all right we talk about education, but what type of education? There are two types. Academic education, along with black consciousness education, is dynamic. But when you have just academic education in what is a racist society, an institutionally endemic racist society, you're asking for trouble. Because what are you educating? Peter Tosh come to mind as well. Those of you who are accustomed to it. Social deprivation and education. I, for one, was, and I'm referring now to the chair comment about me, about daddy. I was talking, I'm a daddy, I'm a legend. I was one of those people who went along with, before that. I was one of them with a guy called Guy Woolray, who built the first black mentoring system in Birmingham. Because black youngsters, especially males, were being excluded by the score. And we went into the schools. It was very threatening to the 99% white females, but we had to reassure them that we were there to help them, not to take over. Probation officers were jealous of us as well because we used to write social inquiry reports and represent them in court. I also, and I have to say hi because I did it, I went along with 20 other NGOs, non-governmental organization, to Geneva to a committee called CERD, which represent is an international organization, UN. Education was a hot potato. We presented the issue to CERD in Geneva. It takes me back again to 1972. There's a book by Bernard Cord. Have you ever heard about it? The Miseducation of the Black Child. And it's still relevant today because they used to actually, the education system, what they used to do, they used to label black youngsters as SEN, or what they ever call them. So that's impacting until today, to answer the question, yeah, until today. Yeah. Yes. I also, when I was chair of Bromu, I used to go and represent lots of family in the schools where young people have been excluded. I had to fight some very hard actions. I'm a living proof of that to help them, you know. And the exclusion of black children is still prominent today. So, Ali, thanks for that.
Thank you, Maxi, very much indeed. Who's next, please?
Greetings, panel. My name's Dave. My question is aimed at Patrick. Yeah, it sounds like kind of, you know, you're splitting hairs, this idea that it's repair and it's not reparation. Because repair, it seems to me, comes under the auspices of reparations. But the question really, you said the 100 million is a starter for 10. Is the Church of England reparations at some point? Are they working on paying more at some point?
Again, I do not represent the church commissioners. I want to talk about my perspective on the. But anyway, it's a starter for 10 because basically you're talking about a massive institution which has been in denial for what, 400 years. So you know, so the church have apologised. They've put some money on the table. The money's not enough. They're going to. But the key thing is actually how we hold the church commissioners to account and how the church commissioners influence the rest of the Church of England, because that money only represents probably 1% of the endowment fund of the Church of England. So there's more money to be had. But we've got to, through the creation of the various projects and schemes to give money to black businesses, black-led community organisations, stuff like education, well-being, then we've got to deliver on that as well, haven't we? So once we deliver on that, then that makes the case. It's no different to any organisation applying for funding and engaging with, if you've been in that funding world, it's still the same principles. We've got to deliver successful projects in our community that makes a difference to say that we are delivering this and we need more money. That's what I hope this fund will do, to be quite honest.
But will they be paying reparations?
Say?
Will they be paying reparations?
I said to you before that the Church of England is on this journey called repair. They don't meet the key criteria, the 5 key principles around reparations, yeah? And they don't meet all 5 of them, so they can't be involved in reparations as well. And some of the questions that's been raised today is wider about, it's beyond the Church of England, it's also linked to this government and other key institutions, which is then is to have that bigger debate. So I think what you should do is actually, okay, Church of England, Church Commissioners have started the ball rolling. What can we do now to put pressure on other parts of other institutions, like the Bank of England for starters, and the government itself, to put pressure on them around this wider issue around reparations? The sad reality is we don't have a consensus within the community what is reparations, which often lets key agencies off the hook, if you want my honest opinion.
Thank you for your honesty.
Yeah.
Rosemary?
I think there's been a huge backlash in the Church of England to this report and to giving this.
I've seen some interviews online, even from some of the,
giving this
church people
amount that they've said. So, you know, I think it, and by the backlash by very powerful people, and so I think it's still very much in the balance. But what I think we should do is, well, what I would do, I'm not telling you what you should do, but I would praise the Church of England, because In fact, it has been the first organisation that's come out and even said that. You know, there are huge, like Oxford and Cambridge universities have huge endowments brought about by endowments from the slave trade, directly and indirectly. And to my mind, they haven't even really started this journey. So, you know, there are these very powerful organisations which, you know, we should be, you know, really looking to. If we've got any links with any of them, we should be looking to try and get them all to come out and say something, as well as then trying to persuade our government that they should be looking at their finances and how they can pay substantial reparations.
Is anyone on the panel aware of any sort of historical models as to how funds like this should be deployed? Has this been done anywhere else?
The Dutch apologized recently. There's a booklet called Sailing in Salt. I think that's Sailing in Salt Water, and they've but it's called, it's a thick document, but at least they've apologized. Okay. This is one of the problems we've got with the white, excuse me, but we've been white-mailed, if you like, blackmailed, by the British government for them not apologizing. We have to develop a strategy.
So did the Dutch have, was there a model that they provided to show how?
Yes, the Dutch has got a model. We need to look around, but that's reparation. It's not just repair.
It's not just repair,
Because reparation should embrace everything, repair. Okay. So somebody, I've got some contact, I've got a document which I'll let you have a look at it, and that. But there was and because in terms of reparation, the CARICOM 10-point plan, it's good, especially the one section on the health, because.
But that's that's going back to reparation.
Yeah. But you know, they interlink it. Yeah. So
they do, but the Church of England have made it clear they're not going down that road.
I know. But since the audience here, and for our benefit and all that, it's a limited thing. Repair is just limited. I think we can't just ignore it like that. It's like,
this is why I think the CARICOM, and in the next session of this, CARICOM, African countries, governments need to come to this discussion. It can't just be black British people. It has to be wider to allow the expertise that we don't have in this country to come forward and inform.
Sir Hilary Beckles, the only thing about the 10-point plan, it's 4.5 years old now. And it's kind of getting dated. And I think we really need to develop strategies to bypass that apology, because they're holding us to ransom by not apologizing.
Well, Patrick has just stated part of the problem is the lack of organisation on the ground, a full consensus across the board within the black community as terms of what it is that needs to be.
Can I add to that?
We're not going to get some consensus.
I mean, I think CARICOM are going to update their 10-point plan, so I think that's the question. So when you have that session with them to explore that. But remember, CARICOM is looking at all the European powers for reparations. So it's a different conversation compared to the Church of England and Church Commissioners. There are lots of models around the world around reparations, to be quite honest. And I said before, I mentioned this quite a few times, there's 5 key principles around reparations. First one is apology. Second one is stopping the harm continuing. Thirdly is about developing the model around financially what that would look like as well.
I wasn't talking about a reparations model, I'm talking about a repair model. It's somebody else done what the church.
It's the same thing.
But I'm trying to stay within the context of what they're. Because if
difficult.
they were here, they're going to say the same thing.
It's like
they've gone over this legally and everything, and they're going to try and bind people to this. So I'm just trying to get that sort of clarity. But when he's finished, we'll definitely take a question from you. Sorry, Patrick.
It's like the Old Testament versus the New Testament.
Okay. This gentleman and then this lady.
Thank you. Yeah, afternoon to everybody and online listeners. My name is Rastred. I'm a community chaplain or a Rasta chaplain. And you could say an activist from a long time as a Rasta. Because when we come as Rasta, it was about liberation, freedom of speech, freedom of thought, freedom to do what we want to do. So for repair is one thing, reparation, like we just hear, that is another story. Because we as Rastafari have always been saying reparations, repatriation, as well as repair. And that goes back to the church, because we as Rasta used to say fire for the church and the state. The church is one thing, the state is the political thing. So it's two different systems that work together. And they've been doing that throughout the last 500 years all around the world. When you look at what they've done to the South Americas, the Caribbean, as well as China, the Far East, India, so we know the history of the church, and it's not nice. So if the church is going to repair, you're going to have to allow us as a people to find our own destiny. As Marcus Garvey did tell us, let us find our own black God. Let us find our own black businesses. Let us find our own everything black, because that's what everybody else is doing. When I look at Chinese history, I respect Chinese history. I look at Asian history, I respect that. I look at European history, there's things I respect there so also. But when I look at our African history, I'm just as proud of my history. But we've been told, forget about our history. We were swinging on the trees. That repair has to start with the church, because the church came with the Bible and the gun. And they gave us the Bible, and when we look up, there's a gun, the blunderbuss. We just look at some out the front there. And Birmingham here has a big role to do with slavery. So when you mention the bishops and the church and the clergy, what you need to do, and all the church people who belong to any religion church, you need to get your bishops involved, writing lessons from the United Nations. This is a world thing, because we are scattered the four corners, not just here in the UK. And for years, we've been coming here, beating drums, placarding, right here in Council House from Dick Knowles' years, as a Rasta youth, being activists for many things, getting the children them housing in Birmingham here. So the point is this, really and truly. This is just the start, as I just said, the chair said. We've got to get CARICOM involved, because just like Maxi said, I've been to all the Hillary Beckles Reparation for real. The 10-point plan, like him said, 5 years, nearly 6 years old. We went back 10 years ago. So you need to link with Hillary Beckles, United Nations. We need to protest. And not only that, you need to go to King Charles. Right? Because I did. Years ago, we wrote a letter that thought it was crazy. There was the 100 disturbance riots, which goes back to the traumatic thing what the sister said. I was traumatized when I look and watch Kunta Kinte on the television and realize, is that how they done it? It made me cry. And my mom says, Colin, go to bed, you cannot watch it. And I was defiant. I said, Mommy, I'm going to sit and watch it. And I did. And then I went to read books. And just like Kessa said, there were some serious atrocities, and these things are traumatic. When we look at history and see what we do and you read the books, you mean to say man was cutting a woman open just to decide what child she's going to have? That's traumatic. And when you read that in a book and you think, you know, like Bob Marley said, I feel like burning and bombing a church. And one of the reasons he did that, like I just said at the beginning, the church was instrumental in slavery along with the banks and the business people. So it's not just the church I'm getting at, you know, Mr. Wedderburn, but also the economical commerce, okay? This building here we're in, it's constructed out of slave money. When I walk in the bull ring and I see the big building, you think, wow, all this is investment, because I love to read. And I'm glad that I studied English history, and this comes back to education. We need to tell the truth, because the education I received in school is nothing compared to what I found out for myself. Because I went into this place here, I went into Birmingham Library, went into what them call the, you know, when you go into this, what's the word? The archives, thank you very much. I used to go up there and to bring my passport just to read a book. And when I read there, I realized, oh my God, we need to educate our people. And from that time, I've been a Rasta activist. Now coming to spirituality and the church, I agree with Maxi Hayles. We need our own temple. I've been activizing, you know, I've been trying to get a temple for us. I'm a Rastafari chaplain of 32 years almost, and I've been trying to get a temple. And every time I go to our community needs to unite and stop the infighting. And this is caused because of slavery. Yes, there was tribalism in Africa, but it wasn't in this way that we were killing and slaughtering each other. That came along because the church came with the Bible and the gun, gave some of our ancestors some gold mirrors and some blunderbuss, which was made in Newtown, and they felt powerful. But if you go before slavery, Africa was quite peaceful. That is problems. So I'm not going to blame the Europeans or everybody for everything, but you're a major part. The church and the political system has to change. And like the sister said, a complete deconstruction. Completely deconstruct and start again if you're going to really repair. And I'm not going to really wait for sorry. We're one of them who say, no, we're not going to wait. If it happens, it happens. Because people can say sorry and they don't mean it. And this is why we have this systematic, institutionalized racism. And you said it earlier, and I agree with your point. If we don't deal with it, we're going to get all these activists and this old BNP rise up again. And we've got to go to the United Nations. Because in 1992, we were activists as the Ethiopian World Federation, and the United Nations listened to us. They did listen to us, because I'm a part of that organization, and Haile Selassie gave it to us. Yeah, time. I could go on, because I'm very emotional about it, but
question, you
time.
to make a statement, yeah?
My statement is
That's
this.
okay.
The church needs to go to the higher institutions, world governments, United Nations. That means go to Geneva, go to New York, write to Mr. Trump.
But what about the Church of England just dealing with...
Just church, yeah. The Church of England.
The Church of England are just trying to deal with what's on their table.
On their table. Let me go to the... Yeah. Thank you. Because sometimes we can get really emotional. The church, as I said at the beginning, the church is responsible for a lot of atrocities around the world, not just here in the UK, right? So let's look at that history. To repair that, we need to tell the truth. So it starts with education. Rewrite the history books and tell the truth.
So what part of this £100 million fund do you think could be used to reach that objective?
Right. Thank you very much. That £100 million, don't give it to no businesses. I don't say give it to businesses. We need more than 100 million for businesses. I say you need to take that 100 million and create pamphlets and booklets and re-educate not just black people, but the United Kingdom. Let people understand. Do you understand where I'm coming from? To me, that's where it is, because knowledge and information is key for us to help. And a lot of us as Afro-Caribbean people are quite educated now. I know a lot of them with degrees. So I said the information, because a lot of our people in the Caribbean, we don't know about these things. Look how much of us is here. It's only a handful, man. So if we have that money, you could educate more so that we can get this place filled, and then we can go into Birmingham Park or get some big park and put on a thing and rally. But to me, go to the King Charles. The church needs to go, because the church and the state tie together, and we know royalty represents the church as well as the state. So you need to go to King Charles, the bishops, you need to go to Vatican too. Don't just forget here, all over the world. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Shey. I just want to say two things. One, the audience is smaller because Blackstory Partnership did not want to open this, rightfully so I agree, to the wider community at this stage. They just wanted to invite a handful of people so we can have a sort of an intimate discussion before it goes out to the wider community.
That is true, my apologies, you're right.
People here making statements,
she did.
so to speak, so it was just a sort of an invite. Secondly, I know you wasn't addressing
Mr. Wedderburn.
Question
Mr. Wedderburn, church
but you were looking at him. Did you want to respond at all to anything that Trent had said?
We can have a conversation, really, no problem. Thank
you. Do that in the networking section. This lady here. Yeah.
Thank you very much. I do feel moved to speak. I think that I want to pick up that this whole thing about repair or reparations, it's just smokescreen. Like you say, it's semantics. I think that it's a muddle that they're putting on to just delay and muddle the process. It is all reparations, and it's all lots of other words beginning with R as well. Repair, restoration, all of it. And then I really appreciate what you say about this bit about confidence. And basically, and I feel very excited and moved. I've come today with a whole bag of books, which I'm giving away for free. And I think that these are really important books for this conversation. It's Dr. Mukti Barton, who was the bishop's advisor on African and Asian ministry, and she's an academic was an academic at Queen's College, and she has done the study, the unpacking of the Bible, basically, looking at how this has completely been corrupted in its use, really from the time of Emperor Constantine, who completely overtook it and made the dove into the eagle. And about imperial Christianity she's talking about. And this book is being launched at Birmingham Cathedral on the 22nd of May. So in just 2 weeks' time, we should all be there. I've got copies. Take the book, read it. It's dense, it's full, it's absolutely... It makes me tremble when I hold it because I think it's so exciting. How many copies did you bring? I've brought 16. I've already given away some, but we can get them. Mukti lives on City Road. She's she's local. I've been with my bicycle. I collected them yesterday. Yeah, she has boxes of them. There are boxes of these books. We all can have one.
And the book ties into this
discussion. It ties into it exactly. And this is it here. She is the Wrestling with Imperial Christianity, Biblical Anti-Domination and Anti-Imperial Strategies for Liberation, Justice and Peace in Our Fallen World.
And she's a Christian?
She's a Christian. Okay. She's a Bengali woman, Christian. And it is mind-blowing. And I'm struggling just to get my own mind around it because I feel like we've all been robbed, we've been cheated, we've been told lies about what is the teaching. And if we now, one of the key bits she talks about is when she was reading this, she feels that she now holds her head high with absolutely complete confidence that this is key. So I just feel that this could be really, really helpful. I think the Caricon program is really important. I think that it's something about getting in touch with all the other peoples who are doing this work, coming together with the Dutch, whoever it is and everybody. But it needs to be turned around. I mean, we need the Bible according to Mukti, really, with the retranslation. We need the liturgies changed because the whole bit is about how we envision God, and it's really, really important. I think probably I've said enough, but it's exciting to be here today and what we can do together. I think that we need a big shake-up.
Thank you. Maxi just wanted to very quickly come in on the point. This gentleman and then the lady at the back comes in. Kessa, this gentleman. Yeah, okay. And then the lady at the back and then you.
Some of us might have witnessed the Pope and the white smoke, which was electing a new Pope. I've been reading somewhere that he's got some black blood in him. And that he may be more, Anyway, what I'm trying to say, it's not a bad idea if we contact the Pope. Somebody suggests, no, I'm serious. It's a church. Contact the Pope as well. Widen it internationally, globally.
But this is, I think we're missing the point here.
Either
we go back to the church commissioners and say, can we, go through this process again and try and find a way to widen the scope of what you're saying?
Just add it.
Or we listen to what Patrick says. They went through the process with them. Yeah. They consulted with just under 1,000 people as well. And there were reasons as to why they didn't go down the road reparation and why they've gone down this particular route. I think Patrick has done quite a bit today to try and explain that process. I'm not sure, because you're saying the Pope, the Church of England, I'm not a Christian, but correct me if I'm wrong, the Church of England and the Catholic Church are two different entities.
But they're Christians.
Yeah, but they're two different entities.
They're Christians.
The Church of England is looking at the Queen, the bounty of Queen Anne,
same doctrine,
whose her money was involved in enslaving of Africans, and then there was another fund where certain members of the church put into that fund for the clergy, and those members who put the money into the fund were also enslaved. So they're looking at they're not looking at the Vatican and Holstead and Calfat. They're looking at their particular bounty, what they have, how that money's been used, how it's accrued over the years, how it's been invested, reinvested, and what they now have to atone for with regards to that particular fund. Patrick?
Yeah, I think you was explaining. I think, remember, so this is the Church of England, which is Protestant, yeah? So if you look at the denominations...
Can you speak up, please? I think something's in the back.
So if you look at the denomination of Christianity, all Christian denominations have been directly involved with enslavement. So the Catholics have been involved, the Methodists, you name it, the Baptists, everyone's been involved. So I think one of the things I think doing this work with the Church Commission is that we hope that this will have an impact on, or start a journey with Christianity to have that conversation. You know, so that's why we're talking about repair, essentially. If you're talking about the whole of Christianity, then you can have a conversation around reparations, to be quite honest. That's the conversation.
Altogether. Thank you. Thank you. Sir, stand up and introduce yourself and ask your question or make a statement.
Yeah, my name's Asha B. I'm a musician, artist, and a school teacher as well, music teacher. I've been listening to the conversation all around from everyone, you know. We have to, I think, first of all, we really have to look at this word here, repair, you know. Because broken down simply, it means to really cover up something which is damaged, yeah? So sometimes things which are damaged cannot be repaired, yes. You know what I mean? So, for instance, offering X amount for, from the churches can never repair for all those human lives which was taken away. No amount of money can do that, no matter what, or people look at things, you know. We also have to see that this word repair, as this lady said, is a smoke screen. It's a cover-up for actually, because as we've been discussing, that reparations and repair, they're kind of hand in hand. It's a very thin line.
Did you understand the criteria
yes.
that Patrick gave us to
yes.
what needs reparations?
Definitely.
Or why the Church of England's funds, Church Commissioners' funds, doesn't
yeah.
meet that requirement? Did you understand that?
Yes, okay. Very clear. Very clear. Yeah. So, as we say, funding the community, and so it's not really going to help. We have to first look at and know that the Church of England, it's a business as well. It's a corporation, right? The head of that is King Charles, a Church of England, not for the Roman Catholic Church or any other church, but for the Church of England. Just like His Imperial Majesty Emperor Haile is the head of the Ethiopian Orthodox faith. You understand? So we have to now look and see that this repair, which the church is talking about, we, as black people, we have to look at ourselves and know that that repair is not going to really help us. We have to repair ourselves first, you know. It's very important, like the young lady said, that we have to look at owning our own businesses, owning our own education, you know what I mean, and stuff like that. So it's very important, you know, that we look at these things as well, and not just say we're going to attack the church or attack Prince Charles or whatever, because there are institute. An institute never changes. It only replaces someone else with someone else. But the old principle of our institute, that it will never change. So, as I said, apologies is needed. You know what I mean? That's one of the very important, you know, it's very, stuff like that. But we, as a black people, we need to look at ourselves. You know, we can't keep on asking for handouts here and there. And this is a worldwide systematical thing.
Is that how you see the Reparatory Justice Fund? As a handout? 100 million, you see it as a handout?
Yes, man, because I look
at the
peanuts money.
That went to them.
Yeah, man, peanuts. That to go to so much different countries, that is peanuts. That can never do nothing for anyone, you know. So we have to look at ourselves and see how we can work to, as they say, this word repair. You know what I mean? Because the damage is already being done. So that repair is very hard to repair. We have to start educating ourselves in knowing properly what to do to move forward with all this. Yeah.
Thank
That's
you.
my opinion.
Thank you very much. Much appreciated. There's a lady at the back. Do you want to stand up, please?
Hello.
We're going to make that. Was there any more questions? Okay, there's. Okay. You and then down yours will be the last because I'm aware of time and we have to be out of the building by 4 p.m. We don't own this building. Okay, come forward.
Hello, everyone. I'll just make it really, really short. And
Your name, please?
My name's Barbara Brooks.
Hi, Barbara.
And I'm an educator as well. I am very happy that this is happening today. I didn't know about it, and a lot of people still don't know about the fact that the Church of England has actually apologised for their part in slavery. I wasn't aware of it, and I think that we do definitely need to have something in place where this information can get out to us. You know, we know that information there is an element of gatekeeping that we have to make sure that we are, that we know about what's happening as well. There's a lot of barriers that we need to overcome. There are all to help our children, and not just children, but the elders. It's not all about youth, it's about us as a community, that we have to be able to help our children. So give us the help as well. Now, the fact that they have actually offered something, we know that it's a drop in the ocean, but it is something. And it's something that needs to be disseminated in a good way. And yes, we do need to come together as a community, but we are individuals and we all have different opinions. But as long as we can value those opinions and then come to some sort of concerted agreement that this is the best way forward. Blackstory Partnership, I just have to say, have been dogged in getting this information out to us. I can't thank them enough that we have this opportunity, and the Church of England as well, for us to be together so that we can try and find a way in which we can get this into our community, make a start. Very good, sorry, I haven't eaten yet. Very good information being given out about what's happening in other countries and how reparations can work. But this is the start. This is the start, and also we need to make sure that we keep this going, we keep the conversations going. We have access to this information. We help the organisations that are making a big difference. We keep that going. That's all I wanted to say, really. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Barbara, for your contribution.
Hi, my name is Damien Morgan, author, filmmaker. Just wanted to ask a couple of questions, actually. How can we make reparations...
Sorry, were you asking the questions to the panel or in general?
It's an open question, even can you speak to the panel, and then it can open. How can we make the reparations movement relevant and inspiring to younger black people who may feel disconnected from slavery or colonial history? I mean, if you think about it, given how little black history is taught in schools, how can we expect young people to advocate for reparations if they don't even know what was taken from them? So I just think that's like a question that needs to be answered for young people to kind of understand what reparations is and what was taken from them, for what they need to, you know, answer for or speak up on. So if you can answer that, that'd be great. And that can
Or
be...
you want to answer now, or because you said you had other questions?
No, that's the question. That's
the question. All right, thank you ever so much. Is anybody from the panel, just two persons, who want to answer that question? Shey?
Twofold. I think the first point is to keep young people in connection with their history, and it really does begin at home. I don't think a young person can be any more connected to their history than the individuals that are raising them are. And so I think it's incumbent upon us all to ensure that we are having conversations with, and this really sits within the mindset of the village, right? Not just the children that we're raising in our own homes, but the children in our families, the children in close proximity to us, the gifts that we give, the places that we go, the experiences that we give children, the education is happening in the everyday, the representation that we are showing our children, the way that we are representing ourselves, and also attempting to evoke a passion for history in young children, in understanding that nothing is new under the sun, right? And as far removed as we would like to, as hard as our parents and our grandparents work to remove us from, whether it be through material gain or campaigning for political change, attempting to remove us from the day-to-day and longitudinal impacts of racial inequalities upon our lives, we can't get so lost in the spiral of progress and, oh, that was in the past, to the point that we've progressed our children out of the concern of what their family, what their ancestors have gone through. I think that we need to communicate very clearly to young people that they are Black history too, that they are creating Black history in their everyday, and that their lives are worthy of recording, and their stories and their experiences are worthy of recording. We should encourage thematic thinking in our children. What have you experienced? What did somebody say to you? Little things. Oh, someone said they didn't like my hair at school, or someone said my hair was this or that. Do you know that this experience is linked to this history? Yeah. Make the everyday teacher a learning experience for them so that they can see themselves in their history, and you will naturally and organically evolve an interest in history and their own personhood within society as they age. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Patrick wanted to come in, and then we're going to go to Kessa quickly. I was going to close, but I just see this gentleman put his hands up. And
So in the development of the report that we did to the church commissioners, we actually had a number of consultation sessions up and down the country, also online with young people. And then when the report came out in March last year, we had a number of events sharing the results of the report and recommendations. And I remember attending one session in Tottenham, in North London, meeting young people. And actually, I do urge you to read the report and how the report's going to be implemented by the church commissioners, because the DNA of the report is actually, if you're going to have an endowment, a fund, initially of £100 million to invest in the future of Black people. The money's going to be spent not on Black communities in the UK as well as the countries we've identified. It's all about young people. So it's about how we use the endowment, the money and the resources to invest in young people, as opposed to investing in older people services. So that's the rationale behind this development of the fund. It's for future generations, and that's why we made the effort to engage with young people. So there's an issue about the ongoing issues of educating young people around Black history, and then feel empowered. And what Maxi said is about that confidence, as well. But also it's about making sure that we have a future generation of young people who feel that they can do whatever they want to do, and that's the idea of the fund as well. But equally, with it's making sure that the church commission are accountable for that as well. So that's another thing I just want to share in that regard.
Thank you very much. Can you be so brief as possible, please? Because
it's like a statement, but for individuals who are watching and who are not aligned to the reparations, I just want to remind them of two examples. One would be the British Museum, which is a repository of stolen goods, And normally, if they were taken to court, they could be, say, done for the receipt of stolen goods and accessory after the fact. So that actually links the past to the present, also with the reparations that was given to the slave owners and was finally paid off in 2015. So if people want more details, find out the information, but those two examples actually link the past to the present, which demonstrates how important the conversation is.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Greetings, everybody.
Greetings.
My name is Russ Nito. My thing is this, similar to the young man here about our children need to know what took place, what was taken from them. My thing is also the community of England, the indigenous kids, they need to know also how it is places like this exist, where sugar comes from, where cocoa comes from, and all these things that our people have slayed and built to give this country the power that it has. Far too many times, when this discussion comes up, everybody who is white, not everybody, but most people who are white think it's nothing to do with me. How did I come to this? All of this came out of slavery. For England to become so rich, banks, church, they need to know as well as we need to know, so that when the discussion comes, nobody shirks it off as if it's nothing. It's very serious. We're still traumatized. Many of us in here have got names that don't belong to us. Our surnames, my surname is from Scotland and I've never been to Scotland. Many people have Irish, Welsh, and so on, and we've never been there. So they need to know that the effect is still on us. That's all I'm saying.
Thank you ever so much. That brings the question.
I think she wants to.
You want to come back on that, Shey? Did you say?
Oh, sorry. I thought
Somebody calling me? No? Oh, okay. Okay, all right. So that brings our Q&A session to an end. Thank you to each and everybody for participating in that. There's so much more questions we could ask, but we have to be out of here within the next 33 minutes. So I just want to use this time to quickly wrap up, and then for members of the audience to engage with each other and with the panel members as well. I just want to say to those persons online as well, to take this to take this conversation forward, please. And so Blackstory Partnership has some questions for you, the listening audience at home, and those who are going to tune into this conversation later on as well, because we know there's a big event in the community today outside of the space. There's a huge event taking place down there at the Legacy Centre. So we want to, when you do return to this video, we want you to think about these questions. What does repair mean to you personally and your community? Do you feel spiritually or emotionally connected to the legacy of the church's role in slavery? And how do you express or explore that? Or having listened to this conversation, how do you want to begin to express or explore that? How can we hold institutions accountable without relying solely on financial compensation? What types of healing practices, cultural, spiritual, economic, should this fund support? What would a truly just and restorative investment look like in your local area? Let's break this down to specifics. In your community, what do you, what should change? How should this fund help situations in your community? How can the voices of the descendants of slavery, that's you and I, remain central in every phase of this initiative? So they've had a survey them of just under 1,000 people from across the world, Barbados, Jamaica, Ghana, and all sorts of people, the Americas, here as well in the UK. They've had a body of people who were very well embedded in the reparation movements. They've had those discussions with those persons as well. But how do we ensure that the discussion, the dialogue continues with us as individuals and with organisations, for example, like Blackstory Partnership, Blessed, and so on? In what ways might the Church of England engage in ongoing relationship building with affected communities beyond this fund? And how do we keep this conversation alive between now and October 2025, when Blackstory Partnership brings us back? I don't know if it's here or another place, but they will bring back this discussion for part 2, where we widen the scope of this discussion. So that's something we want you to take away today, those listening online, even yourselves in the audience. We think it's important if you can. I had wanted a session where we spent a few minutes for the panel members to feedback on what they've heard, but I don't think we're going to get that time to do that. Audrey, it's a bit short on time. 5 minutes, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 60 seconds each. Okay, so before I sum up and thank everybody, let's go from my right here, starting with Robin Wedderburn. 60 seconds. Sum up today. Yeah. And what would you like to say in closing? Here's my stopwatch.
And I ought to have known it, is the depth of the damage. I think, Maxi, if I may come back to you, I think the phrase stolen confidence sums it up. Really. And thank you, all of you who've spoken from the floor with such heart. And I'm afraid I'm somebody who gets feelings aroused and then goes away and it evaporates. I'm going to have to make sure that I remember what I feel now. Thank you all very, very much for spoken.
Okay, next, Professor Patrick Vernon, OBE. Over to you, sir.
You know what, everyone, this is an ongoing conversation. So I got involved in this process with the church commissioners because I felt that it was important to work with the church commissioners so they could try and do the right thing. And that they are doing the right thing, but it's still not enough, to be quite honest. I think the points raised from the floor is important. We've got to do for self. Yes, the money is great, it's not enough, but I think the big question for us is how do we work together? How do we have more agency for ourselves? How do we strategize for ourselves? I don't think we do enough of that. I think there's, if you look at the whole reparations movement, and it's a long history, by the way, in this country, from the days of Aloda Equiano, who basically was lobbying as an abolitionist for reparations, right to now. But somehow, if you look at the black community in Britain, if you were to do a survey, I take it, probably 8 out of 10 probably wouldn't understand what is reparations, and at least repair. They'll probably say, well, if you can sort out my Wonga debts, I'm happy. So we need to do more work within the community to educate and inform. Because if we're not educating and inform, then how are we going to hold systems and structures to account? And we're not doing that. We need to do more of that.
Thank you.
So the report, I mean, I'm sure Black History Stories will share the link. The report came out March last year. We came up with over 30-odd recommendations, including the development of this fund, along with other recommendations around the church should do in-house around its theology, recognising the loss of African religion, spirituality, a whole range of things.
Thank you. I'll send you the report. Okay. Thank you ever so much. Over to Rosemary Mecklenburgh. I'll send them to you.
Well, I think one of the main things is words. Reparations, repair. We need to really, if anybody talks about these words, they need to say exactly what they mean by that word. It's so important. And as I'm sure people feel that it can cover up things, people aren't describing what they actually something. The other thing, just very, very quickly, is that I feel as if I'm a very practical person, and there is a limited amount of money, and it's not enough. I totally agree. No money can, heal the damage that's been done to the enslaved and the descendants of the enslaved. But I feel as if we've got to get the money to where you feel it's needed, and or where can it help? Can it help? Can schemes help improve confidence for young people? If there is money, it's got to get to the right places.
Thank you ever so much. Maxi, Hayles, I've got my stopwatch.
What did you say?
I've got my stopwatch.
Okay, I promise to be brief. I think we must first, I'll say, I appreciate the commissioner, whatever they provided. It's a start. But one of the problem I see is that the word reparation will always be like, as I said earlier, is like the scripture where you've got the Old Testament and the New Testament. You can't use one without. And what I discover is the difficulty for the church, however good it is that the word reparation will creep in because it's interrelated. And it's going to be the dominance of reparation. And I'll finally say this. But I was one of those lucky person, to be in South Africa in 2001 at the World Conference Against Xenophobia and Racism. And in that conference, we had a Jamaica High Commissioner, Dudley Thompson, who explained to us about what reparation is. And the question was, why does reparation keep coming back all the time over the years? And he said to us this. He says, reparation is like a ginger tree. It comes as if it's dead, and then it comes back alive. And that's why reparation is such a powerful thing. You will not get rid of it, and we must embrace it, but we must work with the church's commission. Thank you.
Okay. And last but not least, Dr. Shey, Fyfee.
My last words on this event is that a key theme that's come out is that reparation is not just the provision or the repayment monetarily. It's something that has to be sought within. And whilst we are waiting on whatever funds or whatever form of reparations or repair to avoid any further discord, to arrive with us, we owe it to ourselves and our communities to provide our reparations to ourselves within ourselves. And I mean that in terms of mentally within our belief systems, within the way in which we socially and culturally stratify and organise each other. And that very much comes out in the social and cultural systems of hierarchy that we hold intracommunally within our own communities, the casting out and the marginalisation of black people that don't fit specific frameworks or that we don't believe encompass the identity of what we have, unfortunately come to see it as authentic blackness, which in and of itself is a result of a colonised mindset. We need to decolonise our perspective of what authentic blackness is to be able to achieve what I theorise in my work as Black Radical Unity, which has two main tenets. The first tenet being a commitment to wholehearted egalitarianism, so seeing everybody who is within the black community as equal and not casting individuals out on or separating ourselves on the foundations of religion and gender and sexuality and all of these things that very much take away from the fact that we are all black. The second tenet of that is an individual commitment of all to community. I understand that life is hard, we have to work, we have houses to clean, children to raise, but we should set aside time for community. That doesn't necessarily always have a look in the sense of getting out and going to a specific organisation or protesting. It could be reaching out to people in your community and saying, do you need help with this, do you need help with that, you know. So commit yourselves in the way that you are able to sustainably to community in one way or another. And I'll end on that. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Wow. What a phenomenal day. Some wonderful points that have been raised. I want to thank each and every one of our panel members. Thank you. You've travelled some of you from London, some of you have come from Wales. Thank you ever so much.
And you, the chair, as well.
Yeah, thank you. And can we please give a big round of applause to Sister Audrey and our brother here, Michael as well, from Blackstory Partnership. This wouldn't have been possible without them. And yeah, I'm going to thank, I am. Thank you to our technical team. Blessed. Thank you. Thank you to our sister here, helping out with the technical team as well. Thank you to Birmingham Museum. Thank you to all of the camera persons. And more than anything, thank you to the audience here and those online as well. Thank you. Look out for part 2. We've got a lot of food for thought to take away from here today. Part 2 is going to be crucial to how we move this forward, and we must have the Church of England with us next time. They must send a replacement if they can. Maybe we'll book 2 people just in case. All right. Thank you to everybody. Okay. Thank you ever so much. Please get some drinks, something to eat before you leave. We've got about 15 minutes to get...